Welcome back to the broadcast. It is time for the People's Court. As earlier mentioned, the conversation is largely about what Kenyans feel on the contribution of the church to democracy. Many appearing to be a bit discontented as to how the church is handling matters of the nation as a watchdog. And so we want to ask this question this evening: just how much is it contributing to the growth of democracy? But above everything, do you feel like the church has failed? Or is it us that have failed the church? That is what we get into in a bit. And of course, we open the lines for you to interact with us. As always, the hashtag is the People's Court. I'll be sampling some of your comments as we continue with the broadcast. On the side of the panelists, we have Reverend Canon Evan Somolo, a household name. Thank you so much, Rev, for creating time to be here with us. The Provost, All Saints Cathedral here in Nairobi. Right next to Rev is Pastor Yvonne Waithera Musimi. Pastor Yvonne fellowships or is a pastor at the Rehoboth Open Spaces Church in Woodley. Thank you so much for creating time. And last but not least, we have Professor Ndungu Ikenye, who is a professor pastoral theology at St. Paul's University. Thank you so much, Prof. On this other side, as always, you know how we do it. Sometimes I might not be able to mention everybody who's here, but once you get the microphone, please make sure to introduce yourself. But on this side, we'll certainly be having none other than Richard, who is seated on my farthest, I would call this my farthest right here. Richard does not take the mic right now. So zile unashika microphone, Richard, is when you get to introduce yourself. Richard Okomo, as well as we have Wesley Masongo, and Wesley Masongo also is here with us. We also have Skiti Wanjiru. That is right at the back. We also have Wanjiko Mutero. Asunta, when did this change? Asunta is here with us as well. And we have Vincent Ongolo, who's seated right next to her. We also have Samuel Otieno, Alex Wambua, Andrew Mudhoni, and all of them will be introducing themselves as we continue with the broadcast. So karibuni sana. As always, I want to start on this side, but I think I'm not going to start on this side. I want this, ladies and gentlemen, to tell us what they feel about the church today. Do we start with you, who has the mic? What do you make of the church in their contribution to the growth of democracy in the nation? You could stand up, introduce yourself as give us your... Yes, it's on. No, you just stand from there, no problem. All right, no problem. And you face that mic, yeah.
Thank you for having me here this evening.
Right.
I'm very delighted to be here.
Thank you.
So I'm Vincent Ongolo, an aspirant Kware Ward, that is Embakasi South. According to the question, whether the church has failed or not, or maybe if they're supporting the church, I'm saying they have contributed a lot to our democracy, because if you look at we as the aspirants, or maybe as the politicians, mostly we run to the churches. Why do we go there? We go there to seek rescue, because the church has been loud. The other day, if you look at TV, you realize our Pastor Manyuru of JTM Church came out very loudly akikataa maneno na ile deal ilisainiwa pale na President Ruto about the cyber crime. So that shows that they are trying to protect us. They are trying to protect wananchi regarding the right to speech. So if you look at that, that shows, that is an example that I can give, that they're only working hard to ensure that we are protected.
Okay.
Okay? Yes.
I doubt there's a politician who would say the church is not good today, because like he says, that is where they run to. And I think I want to take the conch from you.
Yes.
And perhaps rush to Professor before I get to engage the man and woman of God. Prof, you're a professor of theology. Based on the teachings, and what we get to see being practiced today, what would you make of the contribution of the church, or of the behavior of the church when it comes to, their contribution to the growth of democracy?
You know, when we think of the role of the church, we are looking at it from the perspective of, first, what is the church here for? That is the first question. We have given the church, in more recent times, the role of being the light and the salt in the midst of what is happening in our political spheres, multiple of them. But for me, I think that is an extension of what originally the church was, from the New Testament times to when we start involving the church in politics.
Right.
We seem to be, sometimes we are friendly to the church, and then sometimes we are not.
Okay.
We want the church to come and be involved in the politics of the times.
Okay.
But again, when they go, as we would say, when you go too close to the fire,
Burn you.
it will burn you.
Right.
And when you go far away from the fire, then you are going to get cold. So what I see from where I am myself is the church needs to be involved in a more rational way of defending democracy, where the church is the light, the church is the salt that fights for the weak, for the oppressed, for the marginalized. That is what I call the role of the church.
Okay.
But what we are doing now in our contemporary times is we want to make the church to be a part of a political party.
Is it we, or it's the church that is slowly by slowly creeping into that particular space? Because you begin by highlighting what happened in the New Testament.
Yes.
And then I come to basically the story or the history of our country.
Yeah.
You know, for the longest of time, you know, you are born into a world where there's this view that the church holds the moral compass. You know, it is the voice of truth, especially when it comes to the question of democracy. Yeah. And so on that very perspective, one fails to understand how are we supposed to view the church as that one factor that does what? Just talks about, getting born again, talks about religion purely and not, crossing over to this side. And is it largely about us or the church itself?
Now, look at our history as Kenya. You begin with our colonial history, where the colonialists and the church coerced together.
Okay.
They worked together. In my language, we used to say, "Gotire modhogo na mofea." There is no difference between the colonialist and the missionary.
Okay.
Both oppressed the people. And then we came to a point where the African people became the church leaders. And that is where they become the moral compass of the people, the light and salt of the people.
Okay.
The voice of the oppressed, the voice of the marginalized. So the role of the church is not just preaching the gospel as it was originally from the apostolic New Testament times.
Okay.
The church was preaching the gospel. But now we are saying the church needs to be a part of a prophetic voice that will fight for the people.
All right, fair enough. Prof, I'll be coming back to you.
Yeah.
Pastor Yvonne, that historically, like we all admit, the church has been seen as that factor that amplifies, the voice of truth, that amplifies itself as the moral compass. What would you say about this very voice and this very position of the church back then and today? Does it hold it in a manner that is gracious enough?
I want to say what Prof has just said. concerning our beliefs are always based on what Jesus taught. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is found in Matthew 25, where Jesus says, you are hungry, and I was hungry and you did not feed me. I was in prison and you did not come to check on me. And so as much as we are called to share the gospel and to preach and to pray, we have a moral obligation as a church to take care of those who do not have the ability to take care of themselves. And so looking historically, having grown up in the 90s where we used to hear of some of the bishops and the reverends who used, like Reverend Timothy Njoya, who was brutalized and fought for democracy, we still hear the same voice today. The voice may not look as, maybe because the church has grown more diverse, and so we have individuals in the society. Just the other day, we had Bishop CW go to the IEBC to go and provide a system, an alternative system to the IEBC for tallying votes. I think the church is doing the best it can, and we should not therefore institutionalize the whole body of Christ, because the church is the body of Christ. But if there are individuals who are not probably propagating the same and probably look at as if they are propagating avarice instead of taking care of the poor or taking care of those who do not have a voice, then there will be some amongst us who say, Lord, Lord, but they are not belong with us. But we shall know them by their fruits. That's what one of our verses that we say, you know a person by their fruits. And so we are doing our best. I think we have seen the NCCK come up even during the Mandamano and say, hey, stop killing the young people. We've seen certain institutions come up and do the same. And I know there is also a counter argument, but I believe that the church is upcoming. It's just that we have become so diverse, and probably the ones who are doing the right thing seem as if they are not announcing it, because also we have been taught by the Lord that we should not let our right arm know what the left arm is doing. And so we probably will not announce it and say, hey, we are paying rent for people, or we are going to hospital care. But we are doing it, and I am, as a clergy, I can tell you that is part of what the church is doing. Can I finish my thought by saying this? During COVID, we saw how much the social burden that the church carries when the churches were closed. And I felt like that is one of the things that probably you do not know what you carry until you start missing it. And so it's possible to be pointing at the church just because we have them in plenty. But once that voice is calmed down and you start checking at what do they do, the school fees they pay, the people they take care of, the sick, taking care of the poor, you start gauging that. But probably we will not write it in reports and give it to the media to read, but it is happening. It
is happening.
Yeah.
Rev, I like that Pastor here is drawing parallels from the time back and the time now. She speaks of the Saba times then, the Saba times now. And we evidently saw, or at least we have read, just how much the church contributed to those times of, multi-party democracy, the constitutional reforms back then. She speaks of the Reverend Timothy Njoya and the likes, and likens the same to what is happening today. How would you describe the situation as well as the relationship between the church and the state, if you're going to look at aspects to do with cooperation, perhaps look at aspects to do with compromise, which the church has been accused of, as well as capture?
Yeah, thanks, Linda. And I appreciate my colleagues, Pastor Yvonne here, and my senior, the Reverend Professor Ikenye, and our panelists. When you look at the situation of the church today, as you rightly ask, and wonder aloud, what has the church become in our context today? And I agree. I want to begin by agreeing with Pastor Yvonne that there are different sides to the coin. There is a sense in which one would obviously say that the church has lowered the standards, has compromised, has gone to bed with the government, or has let down the people. Potentially true to some extent, but looking at it critically, you see the place the church has held in the society today, as we speak, is incredibly huge, without which then we wouldn't be what we are today. Let me just summarize what they've said, probably in 3 or so areas. One, just a simple act of proclamation of the gospel, just enabling people to know who Jesus is, to know what the gospel can do. And we have seen in our lives, and my personal life as an 18-year-old boy, the gospel changing me and transforming me from a hopeless village boy who had given up on hope, on life, and on himself. But then the gospel makes such a huge radical change on individuals. If that gospel was not there today, then our country would have gone to the dogs. So that is number one, the transforming power of the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ that changes, that transforms. But then secondly, you see that that transformation then penetrates through the society to what we call shaping values.
Right.
The values that we probably admire today. Majority of them were formed in the gospel-baked oven. You know, when you see leaders who are leading today, those who are in their 50s up to the 60s, they went to the mission schools, and majority of them, the Masenos, the Mangus, the Kahuhias, and the Alliances and the Marandas, they were formed there and their values were shaped there. So there's a sense in which then those values continue to shape our society. But then you also still see, even today, with the word compromise being used right in the middle there, the church continues to keep the government on toes. Because we say in a technical language that the church is the watchdog to the government and keeps the government in check. And you've seen that happen across the board and all the time. And therefore, the relevance of the church today cannot be overemphasized, whereas, as Pastor Yvonne did mention, there is a section, and I always insist on that. Probably during the show I'll explain a lot more, because we use the word church, the term church, wholesome and globally.
Right.
Yet that is a terrible mistake, especially for media people like yourself, who then think that the church operates like a monolithic thing, that when Pastor Yvonne does this or Pastor Evans does this, then that represents the church. That is a wrong notion that in this show we will debunk and demonstrate that there are pockets of the church that have done incredibly good, yet there are pockets of the church that sadly have betrayed the Lord himself.
At what point then do they come in to make sure that there's order in that house? I think I bring back the mic to this side. Assunta is ready with it. Assunta, you want to say something?
Thank you, Leader. Thank you for having me today.
Right.
Assunta Wanjiko Mutero. I'm in climate change, mitigation, adaptation, and sustainable energy space.
Right.
And we do a lot of training. And sometimes we'll even go to these churches to be given a space to sensitize our people about climate change. The church has been a place where we know it's a pillar for the truth, a pillar for morality, a pillar for integrity, and also a pillar for hope and love. And we have seen a lot of churches that have done great things. I like what Pastor Yvonne is talking about COVID. We saw what the church did. And we have also seen other churches that have come up with schools. We are taking our kids to their schools. They are getting the best. Others have come up with hospitals. Every time we are sick, we go there and we get the best. But I feel the church, the bigger part of the church, has drifted from the moral coding. And they have now diverted to other things. I feel this bigger part of the church, it's no longer about the gospel. It's about now prosperity, more of prosperity than purpose. And with this, the church has become more of a marketplace. Allow me to say so. It has become more of a marketplace where we are having buyers and sellers of blessings, of wealth, of miracles. You know, you come here, you need a good job, bring a tithe. Sometimes nasikia ikiitwa dhabihu. Nikuombe upate hii kazi. Bwana mzuri dhabihu. promotion dhabihu. Politicians
Is not biblical?
dhabihu.
Perhaps you need to ask them, is it not biblical in any way? It is not from this side.
Madam Leader, allow me to say this. I've never seen Jesus in any part of the Bible asking for the dhabihu to pray for this sick person or to resurrect this dead person. I never heard Jesus asking for this dhabihu.
Okay.
And with this, the church, as Professor has said, the church is no longer salty and the food is becoming bad. The church is no longer giving us this light and our country is so dark. And with all this, now the church has lost its moral voice in this country. And as a result of this, we have ruined the conscience of this nation. That's why...
Sunta, let me ask, have we stretched the church a little bit far? Because like Prof had mentioned, we have pushed them to a corner where they must be the light and the salt at the same time, perhaps now shifting from the original role of what the church was like. Have we stretched them a bit too much?
They are the people who have forced us to stretch them that much. Remember, it has been a pillar of what? Truth, morality, hope and love.
Okay.
So we expect them to be this salt. We expect them to be this light in this world. But as a result of them failing, and this moral voice is no longer there from the church, that's why we're having a very corrupt society, a very greedy society, a very dishonest society. And let me tell you, Leader, we have not lost. The hope is not lost.
We have to balance the time.
Hope is not lost.
We will come to the closing bits where we talk about hope and all that. Allow us to have the mic with somebody else so that they can also say something. Yes, you want to say something? Yes, go ahead. You can stand.
Okay, my name is Wesley Masongo. I'm a student of political science, especially a branch called International Relations and Diplomacy. I'm also the Secretary General of Nairobi County Student Association. And I was in consultation with my members, and they have told me from the Gen Z, from the young people, from the student perspective, the church has failed.
Church has failed.
The church has failed.
Okay.
After serious assessment of that statement, I am actually refusing the whole dialogue, because I feel like we are looking at it from a binary. Somebody mentioned a coin, and I think there are more like 3 or 4 sides to the way you can look at the argument. The statement of the argument is very simple. I think that the church has failed as far as empowering and the development towards democracy. Why would the church be asked if it has failed or if it has upheld democracy, and the church itself is not democratic?
Okay.
Because the church is a dictatorship and a technocracy at best.
Okay.
Reason being, we have democratic principles that we hold to be true, that everyone must be allowed in democracy, no matter how much you don't like what they're saying, you must allow them to say what they want to say. In how many churches in our country today do we have people being allowed to say whatever they want to say in the church, even if the church doesn't like it? And if you can't do that, are you a democratic? So if you're not democratic, why would we hold you accountable to whether or not you have propagated the democracy? It becomes a double standard. Point number 2, somebody has said, we are now trying to make the church even more political. My assessment of the statement and of the facts is that the church has always been political. Let us not pretend about it. By politics, it seems it has been at the central decision making of where the society should be. And not, as Professor is saying, that if from the New Testament, the church has been central from its stems to be at the center of leadership and how societies have been governed. I'm going back to the books of Judges and Kings. We have King Saul, King Saul, the first king. When the Israelites were now asking for Samuel to give them a physical king who they could see and approach. When that happened, then the church was actively engaged in the political lifestyle of the people. And what happened when the church, through the Prophet Samuel, refused or did not like what King Saul as a political leader was doing? They impeached him because the meetings were being organized in Bethlehem, where they went to see this. So the church has never been democratic. We do not elect our pastors. Our pastors are sent directly from God. And it's the same notion that we have now, church pastors and leaders telling us that the leader that we have as a country has been sent to us by God.
All right.
So then how do you expect that person to subscribe into beliefs of democracy and yet their own system does not subscribe to it?
Well,
finally, I'll comment on something that was said about the state.
Make it tight.
And the state and the church, separation of the church and the state. Our constitution is very clear. Article 8 says simply, there shall not be any state religion. And it is put in white, in black and white, and it does not allow if the church is good or if the church is...
So what are you recommending? In one case, you are agreeing to the fact that it should be, it has been.
What I have said is this:
church,
I am not disappointed with the church the way it is handling democratic issues.
Because after all?
Because the church is not democratic itself.
Okay.
So you cannot expect me to assess someone on how they are holding up democratic values if in the first space they are not democratic.
Prof, you would really be excited to have such a student in your class.
No, I think, as I said, we have to look at the role of the church in its purest form. One of the things that has happened is the church has been, as she says, has now been given many other roles than the roles that it is given. For example, when you say the church is not democratic, remember that time you were picking in the Old Testament, the church or the people that time were under the leadership of God, and therefore their government was a God-centered, directed government. See, it was a theocratic government. As you look throughout the whole of the Old Testament, even when they were given kings, there were good kings, there were bad kings, and the people who called them to order were the prophets sent by God. So we cannot say that all our prophets were equally same, because some of them, as you already know, in the Old Testament, there are those spiritual leaders who cohabitated with the leadership that oppressed the people. So the bad kings who oppressed the people sometimes coerced these leaders to join them in their dark way of dealing people. But true prophets, and this is where I would agree with the both of you, true prophets have the role of being above the government. The church cannot be like the way we began this country. The British came, and they came with the church, and the church and the government cohabited. That has to happen even today. The biggest challenge you are mentioning is the challenge of the government cohabiting and coercing and bribing the clergy so that they can see things the way the government sees. But we clergy, the way as a trainer, I train clergy of all denominations. I tell them you have to be the conscience of the state. So that is what has to happen. To pray, of course, we will go and pray for the sick. We will heal the sick. We will restore them. We will try to guide them. But there is something that I think is happening, and you can see it here. We all no longer want people to tell us how to run our lives.
Okay.
We want to run our lives the way we want. I always say, That is what people call democracy. And for me, that is not democracy.
Okay.
There must be, at a certain point,
A guiding factor.
where we can be able to say, hata ukiwa unataka kufanya yale unafanya, haya hatuwezi kukubalia ufanye. You can't keep on doing everything you want at your own pace in terms of equality, in terms of all of us
All right.
being equal. Yes, we are equal in the eyes of God, but there needs to come a time when the father has to be a father, the mother has to be a mother, and the son or daughter has to be a son or daughter.
Or in a bigger umbrella, they
Yes.
say your rights end where mine begin.
Yes.
And therefore you cannot cross.
So up to a certain point, we shall say these are what we have agreed in the Constitution, but even the Constitution has boundaries.
Okay.
Just like the Bible has boundaries.
Okay.
There are rules, there are regulations,
And they must be followed.
and that is what we call democracy.
Fair enough, Prof.
I'm seeing there is a confusion today. When I stand in front of people, as my students, I tell them there is a way here. Everything you choose has consequences. And so, under what you would call the Kenyatta democracy, there was also a part when Kenyatta would say, you can't go that far. Or during the days of Moi, there was a time he was always with the church in church in the Bible, but when he went to State House,
Yes.
he was the president. We must respect the institutions that we have developed.
And the laws of the land, Prof. I want to take it away from you briefly and bring it to Rev. Rev, you have acknowledged that there are pockets of the church that have disappointed in their operations. From what I hear is that, or majority of Kenyans, even before we actually got to have this conversation, there's a general feel that the pulpit has been politicized. And I think that's when then we bring this conversation of the church and the state, or the church and democracy. And so we ask, you know, just openly, how do we get to save face? Because as it stands, it's actually not looking good. It's not getting better. Hence the question, just what is the role of the church, all said and done?
Yeah, I must rebuff on a few matters that came around, just for record purposes. One is that it is intellectually wrong to push a narrative that the church wholesome is compromised, is wrong, is a marketplace, there are cons, and that they do all those things that have been described here. That is terribly wrong, because, you know, when growing up, you could hear these narratives that Luos are stone throwers, all Luos are stone throwers, or all Kikuyus are thieves. You see, to attempt to blanket the church and say that the church has failed in totality is to admit that those stereotypes are correct, which indeed are not. If you talk of my father's children, one may be wrong, but several of us would be really good. And therefore, I go back to my statement, pockets of the church could be rotten, but there's a chunk of the church that is shining the light of the Lord. Let me come back to now responding to your question. So what happens in this quagmire where we have all this mess and all around? I want to make a proposal here which is fairly radical that may not be appealing to several of us. I belong to the school of thought that believes that there must be some sense of restraint and regulation, especially where people are going off the rail. You cannot live in a country where everyone just wakes up and says, I want to be a pastor, I want to be a reverend, because you're able to project a bigger voice, or you have some creative way of talking to people in front of people. Unfortunately, Linda, that only happens in the church. The seat where you're seated, I cannot drag any Tom, Dick, and Harry from out there who never went to comm school, media school, journalism school, who has qualified, certified under the watch of whether it's the Media Council or whoever who certifies to sit there, not anyone. Why is it that this church thing is where anyone just pops up from the streets and begins to shout, and no proper equipping, no proper modeling, no accountability systems? So they create a church by the roadside and they collect money, they do whatever they want with that money, no systems. The things that were coming up here are a consequence of non-regulated expressions of faith. And therefore, from where I believe, as an Anglican, I champion self-regulation of churches under umbrellas. And this one I've said several times. That for us to restore sanity in the religious space, especially on the church side, we must push for churches to belong to umbrella organizations that then hold them accountable. As we are now, we have 3 of them in Kenya. We have Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops, bring together the Roman Catholics, very solid, well-regulated, well-governed. Then you have the National Council of Churches of Kenya, again, that brings together the larger population of the Protestant churches. Then you have what we call the Evangelical Alliance of Kenya, EAK, that brings together the majority of the Pentecostal churches. If those groupings were strengthened, then were given the mandate to ensure that no one operates outside of that. I equate this to the SACCOs. Like, you see the way the Ministry of Transport says, you cannot operate a matatu unless you belong to a SACCO. If matatu X commits an offense, then we don't necessarily go for that matatu X, we come for the SACCO. It is the SACCO then to regulate their errant boys. Linda, if we get that route, we'll begin to weed out this nonsense and these silly problems that we're beginning to see in our country today, restore sanity, ensure that there is some dignity and decorum in this faith that was passed to us gloriously by our Lord Jesus Christ.
Pastor Yvonne, do you agree to that? How practical, how fair, and how possible?
One of the things that I want to appreciate is when we talk about separation of the state and the church, we have to look at the benefits that there are into such an agreement. And so I agree with what Canon says concerning self-regulation. It is possible because the church has a mandate, and especially if your heart is really towards serving and it's not towards, as I said earlier, avarice or making money, you will want to submit under an authority. And this is something that is actually taught, and it's actually biblical, because the church itself, even the word church, I was just writing my notes earlier, the word church itself, actually it was called church in the book of Acts. It's called ecclesia. It's a group of people that come together. It's an assembly that comes together, and that gives the understanding that it has a governance structure. And so if we are teaching the word, then the word has order. And so I agree it is possible. But obviously there are people who will come against it, and because either one, they do not understand what self-regulation actually means, because the opposite, where the government regulates the church, is totally not acceptable, because the church is governed by Jesus. And so we know what Jesus says, and we know the boundaries to which we operate. And so I think it is possible, and I think it can be enforced, but it has to come with the goodwill of the people. And we do this by educating people on what does self-regulation means. So I think it is possible.
All right, it is possible.
Linda, if I just add one thing. So that compares with what we call government regulation. Government regulation is what's happening in Rwanda now under President Paul Kagame. In Rwanda, it is the government that comes and asks, Pastor Omolo, which degree did you get? Where did you go to school? They come and check. Does your church conform? They come and check your accounts of books. How do you use money? It's actually messy. So for me, government regulation, no. Self-regulation, yes.
Okay.
But there is a question that she raised about commercialization of the gospel. We have people in this world, in this nation, who are making a lot of money out of the poor. Instead of serving them, and I was reading something as I was reading yesterday about the role of religion in the lives of the people. Religion in every way is supposed to bring order into the lives of the people. And when we preach to the people, there are those functions that have been there, and we all know them. So when we have, and I was, the other time we were talking about the cults, the cultic churches that are individual-based in this country are becoming more popular, whereas they abuse and manipulate and even kill people.
The Shakaholas.
So they are there, and so individualism versus institutionalism. And also, there is this thing for me as also a psychologist, I always say, there is a place for the conscience of the people and the conscience of the church. So we have to keep on saying the church that I came to in 1974, because that is when I joined the church and then I started being a teacher. But there are rules everywhere people go. Whether in the Old Testament, whether in the New Testament, whether in the Church of Kenya today. I was in America for 20 years. You have to give the government the way you receive your money, the way you use it. You give an account. For you to be licensed as a church, tax-free, because churches are tax-free. Even in this nation, churches have previously been, and that's why we are still arguing that the church cannot be controlled, but the church needs to have transparency.
Is it so rampant in Africa compared to the West in terms of, indiscipline in that space?
I think the basic issue is transparency. We call the government to accountability and as responsibility. And the church also has to be as not controlled, but the church also has to say, we have given you a license. How do you use your money? Some people, as she suggested, have become very rich. They exploit.
Is it wrong? Somebody is asking here, is there anything wrong if you're going to get rich out of doing the Lord's work? We come to this side, and let's allow the backbenchers say something, and then we come to you. You pass the mic to them. You have a mic? All right, proceed. You can stand here.
Thank you for having me, Linda. I am Waweru Skiti. I'm a student, I'm a youth leader, and I'm a church leader. To answer your question, has the church failed us? To answer this question, I'd love to look at what the church ought to do. What are the roles of the church? The church is supposed to serve as a moral compass. The church is supposed to serve by protecting the less privileged in the society. The church is basically supposed to be a safe space. But when you look at it, the church doesn't really do that. And so I feel like the church has failed us. For example, on how the church has failed being the moral compass. Earlier this year, a pastor came on the social media platform TikTok, Pastor Ben Gitau, and he was talking about how he was sexually assaulted by someone of the higher ranks in the church. So this same church that is supposed to teach us and to preach to us against sexual assault is the same church that is actually doing the sexual assaulting, which I feel is so wrong. The same church that is supposed to be teaching us against corruption is the same church that is practicing corruption. For example, in July 2025, church leaders were locked outside the church in IPCA Kayole because they failed to provide accountability for how they've used the money. They basically misappropriated the money. And in the context of being the moral compass, I feel like the church has failed us. Also, the church is supposed to be a safe space for people, a space where people can run to. And I feel it hasn't done that. For example, when we look at the church during the anti-finance bill protest last year, for the majority part of the protest, the church was silent. And they were not even, yes.
Okay, all right, proceed. I will allow them to say whether they were silent indeed or not.
Yeah. And also when the protesters ran to churches like Holy Family Basilica to seek refuge.
We might not need to mention names specifically. I think we can refrain from that. But because they would come in defense of themselves. And I think they also offered statements to counter these allegations at some point in time. And therefore we have to be fair to them even as we, proceed to present.
So basically the doors were closed to protesters and they didn't help them. And the same churches were opening doors and basically protecting the police from the wrath of the people. And I'm not saying that's wrong.
Okay.
I'm not saying that's wrong. It's okay for them to protect them because at the end of the day, we didn't want anybody to lose their lives. But the same way they were protecting the police, why wouldn't they protect the protesters who are fighting for the rights of the country?
Interesting. Do you want to...
Linda,
you want to respond?
You say
yes.
The problem with
we're coming to you.
The problem with the audience is that your audience choose to see what they want to see.
Okay.
But I'll forgive them because they're young. So there's enough room to grow to be able to appreciate that there is somebody who cooks better than your mother. The very same time all those things are being mentioned, I personally here, seated, you can Google.
True.
We opened All Saints Cathedral to 3,000 young people in 2024 and this year in June, 25th of June as well. Massive. We mobilize resources, we give food to people. So when you're saying one did this or this one, there are so many, that's just one. But I can count for you so many. The problem is, when we hear one, then we generalize. And that is why.
Overgeneralize.
And that is why I still say, when you say the church, one person was raped, then the church raped that person. Why don't we just say,
Rev, in defense.
Just say Njagi raped X.
No, in defense of them, and we'll go back to Swahili, because again, is our language. They say Nazibovu, Harabu ya nzima.
Section of the church. I want to give you a language. A section of the church has compromised, not the church.
But now the entire church fraternity must come to address
then
this.
If one journalist misbehaves, then I'll say journalist.
No, not generally that, but perhaps there is need for us to address some of these concerns. And I know you've given a proposal to
I agree.
Yes.
And I'm not refusing. I'm just saying, let's not say all journalists are bogus because one journalist reported something wrong.
All right, let's allow this gentleman to say something. You want the church to be disbanded or what?
and thankfully, but it goes to one.
And actually that's what I want to ask them. After all said and done, after all the complaints, Sunday, they will be headed to church. Maybe tomorrow for fellowship and all that. So, I mean, where...
And they're called John and XYZ.
Is there a John here? All right, proceed.
Okay, my name is Richard.
Yes.
Richard Okomo is a veterinary student and veterinary secretary general, University of Nairobi. Okay. And tonight, the question is, have church failed?
Or have we failed the church?
Or have we failed the church in terms of democracy? Actually, the church has not entirely failed. Okay. But 60% the church has passed, 40% the church has failed. First of all, allow me to define church in terms of congregation. We say that church is a group of believers. So initially, as I know, I'm aware, the role of church was supposed to be a place where people worship, was a place where there's a moral growth, and there's a place where there's a spiritual growth. And as per now, I listen to sentiments of the Reverend very well. He said that the church has kept government as a watchdog, not entirely as a position, but as a watchdog. I think recently, there was a pastor in the burial of the late Prime Minister Raila Odinga. He stood strong and boldly and condemned the voices, not condemning anyone, they are condemning the voices of the people. We can't deny, because churches are many, and I was supporting of the umbrella of many of churches so that they can be regulated. There's a point where you can find, as in Kenya now, we have many churches. And because there are many churches, we cannot say all of them are good, they are bad. And even in the book of Matthew 24:11, it said that, Jesus said that there's a time where even false prophets will arise. So these few people should not now overshadow the countless many who are doing great work, so that we can so generalize that the church is...
Hakuna soda kwa bili yangu.
Kama ni mimi wewe nitadai hiyo soda mpaka mwisho.
Okay. To generalize that the church is doing bad.
Right.
So are you getting the point?
Right, we are.
Of course, there are some pastors who live lavishly and their congregants are struggling in the pool of poverty. We understand, because not everyone is good. That's why we need an umbrella to regulate. Before you start a church, you must be vetted if you qualify for that agenda. So church should be regulated, and I support that.
So this goes back to the state, which we feel, but then they say it shouldn't be an issue of
So I think even the religion should be given the fourth arm of the country.
Okay.
Yeah, so that it can be regulated.
Let us be fair. Let us be the gentleman behind. We'll come to you. We still have about 30 minutes. Yes, proceed. You can take the mic meanwhile.
Okay, thank you. My name is Alex Wambua. I am in the field of public administration and political science. The conversation we are having here today, I find it very interesting, because at a time when, as a country, we face a lot of ups and downs, it is always a good act to ask the place of church in our country. And for the longest time, church has been a place where we draw pillars of transparency, accountability, and integrity. It is where we go to seek refuge and to get spiritual nourishment. Now, churches were good, but along the way, I don't know where the rain started beating us. You see? Because churches at first, you could see them fighting corruption. At first, you could not see church leaders being aligned politically to political arrangements and political parties and wherever. But as time went by, you have seen churches or church leaders being aligned to political arrangements for favors. So that's where the problem now is. A real quick one. I saw a friend of mine post on Facebook from the other side, Western, and this guy is saying he no longer believes in his home congregation. Why? Because sometimes back in 2021, they had a contribution they were building a church. I don't know whether, it was a church. And he went ahead and contributed. Now this time round, they are asking him again to contribute. And he asked them to account
for the contribution.
For the contribution, which he contributed the first time. And they are not able. Anaambiwa sijui ho mambo ya kanisa iko na viongozi, iko na church board.
That's how boss
so that's where the problem is. But I think there is still hope. And the church, even though it has failed, there is hope, and it can just wake up and
surprise us.
Yeah.
Well, interesting. Peter Musili, we'll come to you right at the back, but Peter Musili says, honestly, church has failed Kenyans because most of these church leaders are being controlled by the politicians. We need to get to, honest brutality. I mean, we need to be honest, brutally honest. And Charles Ndungu says, the enjoyers of this world did not just talk, they joined in the fight physically. We have to be blunt and brutal. The church has wherewithal, yes, to participate, but the career clergy won't do that. Gentleman at the back, you have the mic, yes, and also you will share with the next gentleman so that we come back to this side.
Okay. I'm Samuel Oyer, aspirant Suba South MP.
Aspirant Samuel, Suba South. Ongeza volume ndio wakusikie.
Okay. I'm Samuel Oyer, aspirant Suba South MP, not an MCA, an MP. Member of Parliament.
All right.
Also organizing secretary of a church, Calvary Church, Dagoretti branch. I can say church has not failed.
Okay.
We are the people who made church to fail their duties. I'm a politician. I know very well that if I come out of my house, I'm going to worship. But if I reach there, I change my mind to politics. And we just do something like bribing them. Tunafanya vitu zingine azifai.
Kwa nini wanakubali hiyo bribe ndio swali?
Even poverty you cannot. You cannot remove poverty with the bad hand. So they must receive it because I've already given it.
Okay.
Something like a sadaka. So we are the one who bring problem. I think church should be independent. It is an independent body. We are the people who bring it like a political party. Churches in Kenya now, it is like a party where people loot their things so that they can gain. It is not a church now. But the original church has never failed, the way Pastor said it. I know, because I'm also a politician. When I go there, I'll go with a buzzer. We used this term. God asked Moses, what do you have? I have a rod. Samuel, what do you have? I have a basher so that I can pass. We are the people who take church backwards.
And
but
I know we want
to change.
If
we can change, I think church will be well.
Okay, well,
These people
interesting.
are not bad. We are the people who are bad. We have bad character in church.
Okay.
Let church to be church and politics out of the church. Pastors don't allow us to talk politics in church.
Okay.
When we talk politics in church, we change the mind of people. And the church comes something else. And the church failed.
That politicians are stronger than the power of...
Not
okay,
politicians.
well,
the
fair
money
enough.
that we have is powerful than the people inside there.
All right, fair enough. The gentleman next to you, be kind to your neighbor so we can hear what he has to say, and then we come to you.
Thank you, Linda. My name is Andrew Muthoni. I'm a youth leader and community advocate from Lamu County, specifically from Peketoni. Has the church failed us, or have we failed the church? I think it's both ways. From the young person perspective, I think the church has failed. I know you said that we shouldn't mention specific churches, specific people, but if you look at it in general, for example, when you were doing your KCSE and you got mathematics 90, science 50, something else 20, and the general marks did not add up to 150, they would say that you failed. That's why you did not attain a degree or a grade to take you to university or like to high school. I want to take from where Okomo left. He said that the church has not failed us 60% and has done well, or like has done well 60%, has failed us 40%. For me, I think it's the other way around. In what sense? When we get to a situation where when a pastor speaks and then they go very viral because of what they said, it means that just that one person or that pastor is a good example of how the church should be. So if in general, not everyone is talking about the church doing good thing, that means the church has failed us. A good example is the church itself is saying that they need regulation. like for them to be able to be accountable. But the same church is supposed to be telling the truth. Like, you are supposed to own the truth, yet you still want regulations to regulate yourself.
Okay.
Yes, we are human beings, and yes, sometimes you cannot separate the church from the politics, because the church has human beings, politics has human beings. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we really want the church like to hold its position. From the beginning, the church is supposed to hold the government accountable. Mm-hmm. It's also supposed to tell the government the truth. At the same time, we expect the church to have, mission hospitals, have this charity and all that. Mm. But if mostly a politician comes to church and donates 1 million, we are all going to clap. And that's why I'm also saying that we have also failed the church, in the sense that we also expect the church to deliver to us. But we do not ask them, why are you allowing certain things to happen? For example, if a politician comes and donates 6 million, as the congregant, we're going to clap, and we're going to be very happy, right? But then days later, we're going to say, oh, that politician is corrupt. They came and donated this amount of money. But we were in that church. We never asked those questions, but we were very happy. Mm. So the church has failed us, and we have also failed the church.
All right, fair enough. I know you have even raised your hands. I'll give you a minute to say something. You can take the mic from behind, and then we come. Oh, yeah. We have another, let's allow him, he's raised his hands, just 1 minute, literally, so that we can come to this side, because we also need to understand just how bad are these donations, just how bad, what just how bad is it, and how do we strike a balance? Do we say no to money completely as a church, or what?
Allow me as a base to put this statement that I'm an adjudicator and I'm a trainer in debating. So I can say, in this whole argument that we've had for the last 1 hour, 30 minutes, most of us have made very good points, but there are non-issues as far as the topic of the discussion is concerned.
What is an issue?
The issue that was put for discussion was this.
What is of substance? I would
yes. I'm just looking at the structure of the debate.
Right.
The debate was very basic. Has the church failed? And then the natural question would be, how, on what parameters? The parameters were set. Have we failed the church, or has the church failed us as far as the propagation of democracy is concerned? So whether or not the church has sponsored people to attain education, or whether it has carried a charity event and cooked chapatis in Kawangware, that's a good point. But as far as the motion is concerned, it's a non-issue. Okay. So the issues that we had to prosecute today were the ones the professor was bringing up. The issues of, as far as governance is concerned, what is the position of the church as far as governance is concerned? What is democracy? We should have even started with definitions of democracy.
Why don't we proceed?
So democracy, exactly now, so this is how I would handle it. So any issues that are towards democracy, we have principles of democratic societies. And the principles of democratic societies are these. One, you must be able to allow people to elect their own leaders. That is a democratic principle. We don't see that in church. And therefore, the church is not a democratic space. Okay. So if the church is not a democratic space, then you will allow the church to project that when they are saying that, therefore, naturally we should have people who are elected by God. If it was the church's will, the people who should lead the country are people who have been directly appointed by God.
And therefore, so, you're in short saying that the church has failed in this very space because in its own
itself internally is not democratic. So what I need to hear from people who have counter-argument is this. They should tell me instances where the church has acted democratically and therefore the church has upheld democracy. You cannot, someone said on the other side that we cannot allow to generalize issues and say therefore that the church is democratic. Is not democratic. I can also use that argument and say this, that the fact that Njohia, is it Reverend Njohia? The fact that Reverend Njohia was heavy when it came to fighting for democracy in the 1990s does not mean that the whole church, because now that one would have been taking issues of Njohia and projecting them. So when we are having this discussion, my point is very clear. I'm refusing the whole argument on the basis of this. We cannot hold the church on democratic values when the church itself is not.
And we appreciate that, but then again, we also understand that sometimes organically the conversation grows.
Correct. That's the word I wanted to use.
Yes.
And I think we must allow our conversation to just morph out organically. Without
At least this is an open space for that.
Jacketing.
Yes.
So he has his point, which is still okay. Yeah.
All right. So yes, of course, we have a lot of concerns raised from this very side. I'll give you 30 seconds so that at least we can come to them to respond. Basically, the concerns that you have raised, and we ask, very delicate and simple questions, as simple as, all right, how do we run away from monies that are donated to church? Because at the end of the day, they would require for that so that at least we can manage and function, and have the church running. Yeah.
Thank you, Leader.
Make it tight, Assunta, please,
yes,
in the best interest of time.
I will. Like I said from the start, it's not the whole church that has failed us. I said majority, the bigger part of the church has failed us. Now, all is not lost. I would like to remind our pastors or our spiritual leaders that they are called to build people. They are called to transform hearts. They are not called to build empires. Let them take us back there where we could learn to them. We are so hopeless, we are so broken, and we could get the solace we really needed. Where they could call it as it is. Not a big spoon, well, it is a spade, it's a spade. Let them take us back there. I, as Wanjiku, the Christian, the believer, and I request my fellow believers the same. Let us do what the Bible is asking us. Let us first seek the kingdom and its righteousness, and the rest shall be given unto us. Let us not start chasing these miracles in the church, chase the wealth, chase all this, because it is about all this that we are getting all these things happening. Let us chase this righteousness. Then we'll get the rest given unto us. The good jobs, the husbands, the wives, all that will come back to us. Now, I call the church leaders. I call my fellow believers. Let's stop taking Jesus as a business partner. Let's develop a relationship where we can call him a father, where we can go to him and talk to him like I talk to my father. I want this. I need this. Please come in here.
Are we telling the church to steer clear, completely?
Very.
Steer. Just how?
Let them be very clear.
Okay.
Let them put as it is. It is not a big spoon. It is a spade.
So they should just focus on.
In fact, I loved it with the clergy during the former premier, when he told the politicians as it is. I loved it. I loved it.
Let's hold it at that. Let's hold it at that and hear what Vincent has to say. Vincent, make it tight so that we can come to the
Thank you very much, Linda. What I want to say, when I first came to Nairobi, before then, when I left home to Nairobi, somebody was born in church and raised by the church. So during that time, I think I lost my dad early 90. So we were raised in the church. That's why I still insist. As my fellow colleagues are saying that church has failed, I'm still insisting that the church has done its best to us. Because you realize when my dad, we lost my dad, Mom actually got a lot of support from the church. Okay? Today, where I come from, that is Kware Ward. Churches are doing better. Because if you look at the Sungu mothers around, these people and the vulnerable people that actually we have at Kware, these people are getting support from the government.
But fair enough to his argument that it is important that we stick to this question of democracy. Yes, it's a good point, but now
there is something that I'm trying to drive. Okay?
You have got to make it tight because of time.
Thank you. So, in connection to that, we as the believers, we have failed the church. How? Our faith stops at the door of the church. So you leave, and then you extend other things outside the church. Okay? So you realize when you, just like the government, a government cannot operate without tax, okay, without tax. Is that okay? Just like the church. Church cannot operate without tithes and offerings.
Okay.
So that is what they use to support the vulnerable people around.
And therefore it's important.
So
that
it
they
is
receive.
important.
Delicate balance,
Okay.
Pastor Yvonne,
Yes.
delicate balance.
Yes.
We have got to enlighten the people and on just how the church manages, itself, whether under a certain entity or a certain umbrella or, in isolation, maybe as a church, in its own. Because then how do we just operate without these tithes, without, these givings? How do you consider this a brown envelope? And, how do you look at this as a contribution, a genuine contribution towards the growth of the church and managing of the church?
Okay, let me just start by probably addressing what the lady who said you're a leader in church, and just say that I'm sincerely sorry for anything that might have happened, because sometimes when we are debating, you may think that we are overlooking. We're not overlooking. We are actually, at some point, I'm looking at it like we are actually on the same side. We are actually saying that to a degree, we are on the same side because we are advocating for good governance, taking us to a place where our brother here said about the church cannot be democratic because we are by nature theocratic. Kenya by itself is 85% Christian. So that's why we have to have this conversation, because it forms a majority of the population. And because of this, the preamble of the Constitution starts by saying, we the people, we recognize that God as the authority of God, and it finishes by saying, God bless Kenya. So we have to see that the fact that the Kenyan, as much as we're saying there's a separation, believes in God, a big percentage of it, and that's why we're having this discussion. And also, as a believer, we also believe that God, as our leader, he understands our needs. And what he says is right will always override. We don't always say the majority is right, and probably that's where it clashes with democracy. Because we will go back and say, what does the Bible say? Because the majority can say something is right, but we have to go back to the Bible as our foundation. And so all these other things concerning givings and tithe, the Bible and God becomes our adjudicator, our leader, and not just an adjudicator, but our king, the one who has the moral compass of saying what is right, what is wrong. God, and from the very beginning, has given in the book of Genesis, man the authority to rule and to have dominion. And so you see from the very beginning, God is interested in governments. And you can see through the book of Daniel, into the New Testament with Paul talking to kings about the gospel. And so we are here and when Jesus came from being tested by Satan, he comes back and opens the Bible and says, read Isaiah and says, that I have come to preach the good news to the poor. And I've come to, this is like his mission statement. So as we preach the gospel, our beliefs are going to be guided by the word of God. What does the word say? The word does say that we need to mind the affairs of the church. The church has a mandate to develop its own people, yes. Our biggest mandate is to share Jesus in all these different areas. However, the Bible still, as much as it says submit to your leaders, also we see in Acts chapter 4, the same apostle saying, no, we don't have an obligation to honor you over our God. When it comes to certain things, the church will say, no, as much as you are leaders, we are here. Our moral compass is guided by God, by the Holy Spirit. And so when the Holy Spirit has given us the ability to judge whether a matter is right or wrong. So when it comes to things like giving, and you can see obviously there's corruption there, and when you are led by the Holy Spirit, you can be able to make sound mind. That's what the Holy Spirit gives us. He gives us sound mind to make accurate judgments. Then obviously you're going to say no. When it comes to the issue of politicizing, someone talks about politicizing, the pulpit has been politicized. We are also Kenyan citizens, we also belong to this nation. And we have the mandate to tell you what the word or the authority of the word says concerning a certain thing. It might not augur well with you, and we do not push people to believe, we are not authoritarian. We're not telling you believe this or else. We're telling you the Bible says this is the kind of leader you should choose. And as you go to vote, are these the kind of leaders you want? And that's where many people are like, no, you shouldn't tell me how to vote. You shouldn't tell me who to support.
Okay.
But we have a mandate to direct our members and tell them that we might not tell you the name, but we will tell you what are the qualities to look for in a leader. What are the qualities to look for even as you go out? I like the gentleman who said that the people have failed the church, because to be honest, the church is an institution. By itself, it is governed by God. By itself, it's not wicked, it's not evil. But there are people, individuals who are saying they are part of us, but they are not. And it is also in scripture that there is obviously the goats and the sheep, and they all call him Lord. And so we really do want to see that there are changes that are happening in the institution of the church. And what I'm seeing as a pastor is there is a change. There is a generational change. There is a way we are also coming up. There are new leaders coming up. We may not have Timothy Njoya at the forefront, but I can see that there is institutionalized change with the digital progression that we are having as young people. We can see change in how we even speak out about the issues of and the ills of the society.
All right.
And so just to finalize, I know time is not on our side.
Extremely.
Yes, just to finalize, I want to say this. It is the obligation of the church to ensure that we live according to the mandate of the Bible. That is why we don't have we don't raise the Constitution first. We raise the Bible.
Okay.
The Bible is our authority. And therefore, if any leader says that they are Christian, then we are going to lead them according to the principle of the Bible. The Bible comes first.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Prof, we wanted to say state and religion, and therefore we had intentions of inviting persons from other religions. Yeah. But by the virtue of it being a state that is occupied by about 85% Christians, yeah, and the fact that we are here, and some of the many other religions would argue that these cases of compromise, capture are not so common in their spaces. Like for instance, the Muslims. Then I said, let's perhaps just tackle the church first. What do you think the church needs to borrow from the other religions? Or what?
For me,
yeah,
I think we need to agree on several things. Number one, there is scripture, as she has said. Over the years, we have developed the tradition of the church that governs the church. Then there is our experience that leads us as people. So we can discuss about our experiences that we have experienced as a people, because we know what oppression is, we know what colonization is, we know abuse by the government, we know from those experiences. There is the fifth thing. We need to reason together. And most people today don't like us reasoning together. And the Bible is very clear. Two people cannot go together unless they reason together. And what I'm seeing happening in this country is a few people spoil the discussion. And when we are talking about democracy, for example, we have our constitution of 2010. It was a whole discussion in the country when we came up with this constitution. And yet, we don't want to follow that constitution. And so we have the courts to help our people to stay within the boundaries of the Constitution. Because the Constitution helps us to have a democracy. And when that democracy is not applied, then we oppress one another. And so the issue, again, that is happening, when we are saying all these parts of government are corrupt, because we will say that parliament is corrupt, courts are corrupt, civil service is corrupt, and what we call the executive under the president is corrupt, we overgeneralize that. And so we keep on watering down what our parents died for us to become an independent country, a democratic country. We must respect the institutions that we have formed.
Well, unfortunately, Prof, is that we have gotten to that point of late that where as a country we feel like all these institutions have failed. And then we want to look at the church for...
we want the church to be in that discussion. And yet, when the church prescribes, we fight back.
They want to challenge, or perhaps
it's okay.
But we have to make it very tight.
But when the church...
No, it cannot be you. At least somebody else. Let's allow the gentleman behind
Linda, when the church tells us... For example, if we are electing these wonderful young men here, we need to tell the young people, even we, the older people, also our voice needs to be heard.
All right.
Because we have a tendency to want to cut and say tradition is not important.
History?
History is not important. Let us live by our experience as Gen Z today. And we go and destroy Parliament, and when we are told don't destroy the institution of Parliament, we think that is oppression.
Well, Prof, let's allow them to say something.
For me, I am saying, sorry, I'm saying we have to be a little bit more orderly, to reason together. And I have said, the church has its work. We have given the church another job of working on issues of democracy.
Okay.
It's a job we have added to the church. And yet, when the church tells us, we don't want to listen.
Interesting. Andrew, you have to say something and make it very short.
Yes,
thank you.
I like the fact that, Professor said that we are guided by the script, and I just want to read a very quick verse. Proverbs 31 verse 8 says, "Speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves, for the rights of all who are destitute. Speak up and judge fairly. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy."
Yes.
You're saying that institutions are there to be respected, but these institutions have to serve the people.
Yes.
And when they're not serving the people, then we cannot respect them.
Yeah.
And it's not like we are disrespecting them. We're just telling them, you swore to defend the Constitution. And the Constitution says that you cannot kill or you cannot detain someone if they have not done anything wrong. So do not do that. We are not trying to disrespect you, but we're just telling you, just do the right thing. So if you're not doing the right thing, it's not like, we don't want to follow, we don't want to respect the institutions. We do want to respect them, but they have to serve us. If they're not serving us, then they're not important.
We have to question that. I am not disagreeing. We have to question those issues. But I'm saying we no longer want to be told. We want to keep on telling.
And then we're losing it.
Yes.
All right. I want to take it away from Prof in the best interest of time. Skitty, you want to say something? We come to you shortly, but before then, I remember they used to sing Kwekwe Shambani Mwenyayo, Lazilimu and all that. So I'm assuming that this is a whole garden that is church. What do we do moving forward to make sure that these ones that are spoiling the name of the church then are rooted out? And this at that level of involving the state, because then we understand that licensing is happening at that level, so that then we come at an amicable space where we say perhaps have regulatory umbrellas, or better yet, let's have the church disciplined and behaving. But at the end of the day, these ones that are spoiling the name of the church then are rooted out, as we sum it up.
Exactly. And that indeed is what I said earlier. Like if a journalist misbehaves, the media council will withdraw their license. If a lawyer misbehaves, LSK will deregister them. And you can mention all the regulatory bodies that we have that ensure that members of those bodies operate within certain confines as required by the codes that are there. And that's where, for me, I champion the argument that there are many, many good pastors out there, many good pastors. Yet, as I said, there are pockets who are really, really messing up. That is where that internal self-regulation comes in. That then we say, Pastor Omolo, you did this, and then you're not allowed. Because me, I'm licensed, I have a license. In our system of governance, I have a license. Then that license is withdrawn, then I cannot do anything. It moves to a level, we use a technical language, my senior Professor Kenya can tell you, it's called defrocking. Defrocking is now where the whole concept of consecration as a priest, being set up as a priest, is removed from me. So I'm no longer a priest entirely. That must happen. That must happen, Linda, so that I don't come back. Because
people.
Probably those are the two things that I want to finish with, so that probably we also save on time.
Yes.
Number one, I think I want to encourage everyone, and I want to believe and assume that majority of our listeners, and we are grateful to them who are listening to us, and our panelists here, in one way or another belong to a congregation, belong to a church, or ever belonged to a church. I want to encourage everyone, number one, to ask questions, to hold those who are in leadership accountable, and not to be cowards. And just get in there. If you're in an Anglican system like ours, get into the parish council, get into the AGMs, because for us we hold AGMs every month. Ask questions. Ask Pastor Evans, this money, how was money used? We saw this one was done like this. The youth programs were not funded. Ask questions, demand accountability. That really is where now the change begins. Because if you don't go there, then all these unscrupulous people will continue to exist. We must hold them accountable. Why are you buying a jet? Yet we are not even taking a quarter of our money to support children who are destitute in Mukuru Kwenjenga. So ask questions. Go in there, ask questions. We call it, I guess political scientists would refer to it as bringing reform from within. Don't run away. Number two is really to build a culture where there is no politics in church. For me, I would want to encourage that we nurture a nation where we don't come to politics in church. All Saints Cathedral, opposite Charena, where by grace of God I lead, no politician, Linda, I tell you, no politician will stand there on that podium to speak. Whether it's 2017, 2022, or 2027, nobody. Hakuna mtu atauza sera zake pale. If you want to talk politics, go talk it out there. We come there to worship and purely that. If we deplatform politicians from church, including my Suba South friend, deplatform them, then we'll
own church.
And let me just finish by saying that then comes with, if he wants to bring money, you know, you asked the question of money earlier. Bring your money pole pole, the way my general congregations bring. Don't bring $1 million and ask me to announce. I will not announce. So let's stop announcing money, because the moment we do that, then we are making others to be more special, and then degrading it.
All right, gentlemen, on this side, the person who's going to speak will only have 30 seconds or maybe a minute maximum. And I want them to respond to this. Just what is this one reform or cultural shift that you would wish for the church to have so that we can help, or they can come and help, better serve democracy? We have to close. It cannot be you, because you have talked enough. It cannot be you. All right, Jasuba.
Okay.
I hope you've heard my question. 1 minute.
Okay.
What is this one reform?
Okay, thank you. What I know, let me start like this. I know there's nobody who can break iron, but its own rust can do it. There's nobody can destroy a person, but your own mindset can destroy you. We should change our mindset, both church and the people who are going to church. We are the people who set our mind, church is doing bad. Pastors have set their minds that we are the people who was bad. So we should change our mindsets so that church should be
the church.
The church and people should be
fair enough
according to them.
Samuel Otieno, aspiring member of parliament, Suba South. Asante sana for the great insights. On this side, we have Wanjiko Mutero, we have Vincent Ungola, we have Alex Wambua, Wesley Masonga, Andrew Mudhoni, Richard Ukomo, as well as Skiti Wanjiru. And on the panelist side, we want to appreciate Reverend Canon Evans Omolo, the Provost All Saints Cathedral, Nairobi, Asante sana, as well as Pastor Yvonne Waidera Mustimi, Rehoboth Open Spaces Church, Woodley, as well as Professor Ndungu Ikenye, Professor Pastoral Theology, St. Paul's University. And all of you, massive feedback. It looks like people are really not convinced that the church is doing them right. But all the same, all hope is not lost, as we all have agreed. Asanteni sana for the great insights. We must close at this very point. My name is Linda Lela. I appreciate the entire team that has made the broadcast a success, and not forgetting the sign language interpreter who walked with me the journey. That is none other than Ruda Nyamai. Do have yourself a lovely night. Bye-bye.